September 14th, 2033, 11 a.m. Over the past 2 weeks, I've gone through several worlds. Last I wrote in this journal, I was on a world I could best describe as hell, at least in a Dantean sense. Some of the sicker and twisted people on Earth Prime may have seen that place as paradise, but to me, it was a fallen civilization. On that world, the Confederate States of America had won the American Civil War by getting around the Union blockade. Long story involving the annexation of Central America in the 1850s, I summarize for sake of paper space. They were victorious, and soon led an attack on Washington, D.C., taking control of the Union by 1870. A tax of sorts was imposed to make slavery commonplace for the rich and middle class alike. A racist America would be a bad enough world to land on, but it was made worse by World War II. On that world, the CSA allied with the Axis powers and laid the Allies to ashes. The flag I saw, the one with stars and bars and the swastika, was the flag of the Confederate Nazi Empire that dominated the planet. It was sickening to walk the streets of that world, but my curiosity stopped me from just leaving it behind. I saw things I wish I hadn't, things I won't recount here for basic human decency. I will list some things, however, to soothe the curious mind of whoever finds this. In the town square was a statue of none other than Adolf Hitler himself, with a plaque that read, "The Father of Racial Purity," that honestly made me want to laugh, scoff, and fall to my knees in one instant. There was, and I know this will sound demented, a children's show called Führer and Friends, very analogous to Barney and Friends on Earth Prime, where children go on adventures through time, space, and literature with none other than the Führer himself, as well as a show called Uncle Tom's Playhouse. The only safe location in the world was Australia, or New Britain as it called itself, the only place that the Empire hadn't annexed, or that hadn't submitted to the Empire's demands. That should be enough to give you a good image, leaving out much of what I will never unsee. After that, the other worlds I landed on were just as interesting without being just as horrifying. A world where the majority of people were born blind, yet society was just as advanced. A world where the Westboro Baptist Church didn't exist. I would have stayed longer if I didn't have a home to find. A world where Disney didn't die of cancer and actually made the Epcot and consequently the future he wanted to make. A world where sports were more popular than movies and television, and everyone played at least one. The world I found myself on last is one I can't explain. I won't even try. I'll just tell you what happened. I emerged from the undulating sphere that was the wormhole and found myself in a field. Trees, grasses, not a building in sight. Civilization had yet to touch this patch of land, and the land had benefited from it. I stood to admire the untouched beauty for a minute or so, maybe two. Then, I heard it. Footsteps. Fast-paced, approaching, amplifying footsteps. It was at that moment that I was pushed down from behind. The footsteps had stopped because their creator had smashed into me head-on. I readied to stand, my back sore from impact, when I saw the person that had been running blindly. It was a girl. She couldn't have been older than 15, 16 maybe. She had long caramel hair and dark green eyes. She looked surprised, Obviously, she hadn't expected anyone to be out here. Her face appeared frightened, desperate, but I somehow knew it wasn't directed toward me. She stood, her green silken linen slightly torn, and grabbed my arm. "You have to hide me," she whispered. "What?" I asked, still stunned. "Please, he's coming," she responded. I only had a few seconds to process what was going on when I heard horse hooves in the distance. I made my decision, and I quickly led her into nearby bushes and hid there with her. After some time, a man on a horse came into view from behind the thick leaves. He had a clean shave, short black hair, brown eyes, like a Prince Charming right out of a storybook. His horse was even the stereotypical brown with a sandy mane and white patches. "Visione, where are you?" he called out into the woods. "Please, come home. Running won't stop destiny," he continued. The girl next to me cowered backward, further into the brush. The man called out for several minutes before mounting his steed and continuing deeper into the trees. We both waited a while before emerging from the bushes, and I could finally ask her what questions I had. "Who was he?" I asked, as she was on the verge of tears. "My groom-to-be, arranged since birth," she responded. So that's what this was. The old "I don't want my destiny decided for me" story. I'd landed in a fairy tale. "Who are you?" I asked. "Visiani Smaragdanai, the Emerald Maiden," she said through slight sobs, an answer that definitely said storybook. "How is it you have not heard of me? Even if you are of another kingdom, each has its own maiden to be chosen each generation, always by the same names. Rubunus Mercatu, Sapphira Potriaris, Amethystus Purpura, Adamas Anacetus, and then me. The Crystal Maidens. How have you not heard?" To this I didn't know how to respond. Clearly, I had landed on an entirely foreign world, one I couldn't lie my way out of. When I didn't answer, she put her hands on my temples, closed her eyes, and whispered something. "Ostenda mihi anamum." I felt lightheaded. My memories, every memory, even the infantile ones, came to the surface. I remembered emerging from the womb even, my first steps, my first day of kindergarten, my first kiss with a woman I would marry, my graduation, the first time I'd fired up the machine. Everything, down to the slightest detail, was coming to me. And just as quickly, it left, and she took her hands away. "James Thatcher," she said. "Your name is James Thatcher. You are not of this world." I was astonished. I had just witnessed scientific heresy. I had just witnessed a performance of spellcraft, but that couldn't be. Magic wasn't possible. At least, that's what I had always thought. She had just uttered some words, Latin, I think, and had seen my entire life story, from birth to present. There was no other way to describe it other than magic. That, or very advanced and directed psychokinetic abilities. I wasn't sure which one was more plausible, and I'm still not. "You can take me away from here," she continued. "What? No," I snapped. "Please, you must. I cannot marry that man." "Certainly you can. You look nice enough." and rich." I jested. "You don't understand." She spoke firmly, grasping my arm. "Royal marriages are not mutually beneficial in this world like I saw they were on yours. It is beneficial to the prince, never the maiden. He uses us. He'll use me to satisfy his bloodlust. I saw a book, a story on your world that was similar to my reality. I think it was called 50 Shades of Grey." With that, I was at a crossroads. Not only had she reminded me of that revolting piece of literature my wife had berated me into reading, but she had helped me understand the gravity of her situation. I didn't want to leave her for 2 reasons. 1, how could I live with myself after leaving a woman to be forced into marriage with a sadist? What kind of person would I be? And 2, if she could read my mind with a few words, I'd hate to see what more she was capable of. My mind was made up. She was coming with me. I don't know what I'd do with her, much less how I'd explain her to my wife and coworkers, or what the impact would be bringing a spell-casting princess into a scientific world, whether that impact would be on her or my world. But one thing was certain, I was her only hope. I wanted to see more of this world than just a grassy field, a pretty face, and a horse. To see its history, where it had diverged, but there was no time. I took her by the hand and opened the portal. We jumped in together and emerged on one more familiar ground. Skyscrapers and paved roads, cars and streetlights. It was what I didn't see that worried me. People. Where were the people? Here I was with a magical girl taken into a magicless world, and nothing to show for it. No hustle and bustle of the downtown area. No people walking by with iPhones or Kindle Fires. Not even the casual conversation on the street corner. Silence. All but for a slight squeaking roll in the distance, one that quickly showed itself to be a roving robot. Obtain groceries from producer AI, clean home unit, help masters in act of reproduction. It continued rambling commands. I had a feeling, wherever the people of this world were, this thing could take me to them. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe with your friends and all that good stuff. Today's story was a subscriber submission, so if you have a true or fictional tale that you'd like to be read on this page, be sure to submit them to the email in the description below, and you might see them in the next video. So thanks so much again, guys, and we'll see you again soon. Long story involving the annexation of Central America in the 1850s. I summarize for sake of paper space. They were victorious, and soon led an attack on Washington, D.C., taking control of the Union by 1870. A tax of sorts was imposed to make slavery commonplace for the rich and middle class alike. A racist America would be a bad enough world to land on, but it was made worse by World War II. On that world, the CSA allied with the Axis powers and laid the Allies to ashes. The flag I saw, the one was, at least in a Dantean sense. Some of the sicker and twisted people on Earth Prime may have seen that place as paradise, but to me, it was a fallen civilization. On that world, the Confederate States of America had won the American Civil War by getting around the Union blockade. Stars and bars and the swastika was the flag of the Confederate Nazi Empire that dominated the planet. It was sickening to walk the streets of that world, but my curiosity stopped me from just leaving it behind. I saw things I wish I hadn't, things I won't recount here for basic human decency. September 14th, 2033, 11 a.m. Over the past 2 weeks, I've gone through several worlds. Last I wrote in this journal, I was on a world I could best describe as hell.